The Ghost in the Rain, a Japanese horror story. They say that rain makes everything more beautiful. The smell of wet earth after a dry spell, the sound of drops on rooftops and pavement, the way city lights blur and multiply in puddles, turning ordinary streets into something almost dreamlike. But sometimes the rain brings more than beauty. Sometimes it brings company. Kenji was 24 years old and had been in Tokyo for 3 months. He had come from Sapporo for work, a position at a mid-sized design firm in Shibuya that he had worked very hard to get and intended to work even harder to keep. He didn't particularly love Tokyo. The city was too fast, too loud, too relentlessly awake. Back home in Hokkaido, there had been space between things, space between buildings, between people, between moments. Tokyo had no space between anything. But the work was good. The opportunity was real. He had told himself he would stay 2 years, build something on his resume, and then decide. He worked late almost every night, not because anyone required it, because he wanted to be thorough, wanted to understand everything, wanted to be the person in the office who knew the project best. Sometimes he was the last one to leave. He would ride the elevator down to the ground floor and step out into whatever the night was doing and make his way home. On this particular night, the night was doing something dramatic. It was typhoon season, mid-September, and a large system had stalled over the Kanto region, dropping enormous amounts of rain on the city for the 3rd consecutive day. The streets outside Kenji's office building were rivers. The gutters were overwhelmed. The few people still outside moved with their umbrellas angled sharply against the horizontal rain, heads down, moving fast. Kenji had forgotten his umbrella at home that morning. He stood under the narrow overhang of his office building entrance and looked at the rain and calculated his options. The walk to his apartment was 12 minutes. The rain was very serious. His phone showed no available taxis and a 40-minute wait for any rideshare. The last train in his direction had already run. He was going to get very wet. He shifted his bag over his head as a partial shield and was about to commit to the walk when the rain above him stopped. He looked up. An umbrella. Large, dark, held by a man standing silently beside him, a man who had appeared without Kenji noticing, which was slightly startling but not unusual in a busy city on a rainy night. The man was older, 60s perhaps, thin, in a plain, dark raincoat, holding the umbrella over Kenji's head with the particular calm of someone who has decided to do something and is simply doing it. "Thank you," Kenji said, turning to face him with a smile. "That's very kind of you." The man didn't respond. Kenji tried again. A small comment about the weather, a question about whether he was also waiting for a cab. After a long pause, the man spoke. His voice was quiet and slightly distant, like a voice coming from the far end of a long corridor. "I don't mind the rain," he said. "I'm just passing through. I was with someone else yesterday. Tonight I'm with you. Tomorrow I'll be with someone else." Kenji looked at him. The words were ordinary words arranged in an unusual order. He smelled no alcohol. The man's expression was completely calm. Not the glassy calm of intoxication, but the settled calm of someone who simply means what he says. Strange, Kenji thought. He thanked the man again, stepped out from under the umbrella, and walked quickly into the rain. He would rather be wet than stand under a stranger's umbrella listening to things he didn't understand. The rain hit him immediately, and he put his head down and walked fast. After about a minute, he noticed something. His footsteps made the sound that footsteps make in heavy rain. A soft splash with each step, the puddles responding. Splash, splash, splash. But there were 2 sets of splashes. His. And then another one, slightly behind, perfectly timed to someone walking at his pace. He turned around. The street was empty behind him. He stood for a moment in the rain, looking back the way he had come. Nobody. The street was deserted in both directions. The rain falling through the lamplight in silver curtains, not a single moving figure visible. He turned around and walked faster. 2 sets of footsteps again. He did not turn around a second time. He walked the remaining 8 minutes home at the pace of someone who is not quite running but would not object to running. And when he got to his building, he took the stairs to the 4th floor without waiting for the elevator and let himself into his apartment and locked the door behind him and stood in the hallway, dripping on the floor and breathing. His roommate Takeru was away for the week, back in Osaka visiting his family, which meant the apartment was Kenji's alone. He changed out of his wet clothes, made tea, and sat on the couch with his phone trying to focus on something ordinary. The storm outside was intensifying. The wind had picked up significantly since he had walked home. The windows of the apartment flexed slightly in the gusts. Old building, not particularly well sealed, and the rain against the glass was constant and loud. Lightning appeared at irregular intervals, throwing the room into brief, sharp brightness before the darkness returned. The thunder that followed was deep and resonant, the kind that seems to come from inside the building rather than from outside it. Kenji turned on every light in the apartment. He tried to sleep. He lay in bed and listened to the storm and told himself that he was tired, that the events of the walk home were nothing, that the city was full of unusual people, and tonight he had briefly encountered one of them. He could not sleep. Around midnight, he got up for water. When his bare feet touched the bedroom floor, he stopped. The floor was wet. He looked down. A thin film of water covered the floor, not flooding, but enough to be unmistakable. He looked toward the window. In his hurry to get inside earlier, he had not checked the window latch properly, and the window had come slightly open, letting the rain drive in at an angle across the floor. He crossed the room and reached for the window latch. In the glass, in the lightning flash, he saw it. A hand. On the outside of the glass, pressed flat against it, visible for the duration of a lightning flash and then gone as the darkness returned. He was on the 4th floor. He stood at the window with his hand on the latch and stared at the rain-streaked glass and waited for the next lightning flash. Nothing. Just glass and rain and darkness and his own pale reflection looking back at him. He closed the window and latched it carefully and went back to bed and lay completely still with his eyes open and the lights on. The power went out. Complete darkness. The refrigerator hum stopped. The lights died. The only illumination came from the lightning outside, intermittent and unreliable. He reached for his phone. Dead. Fully discharged despite having been on the charger all day. He lay in the dark and listened to the storm. From the kitchen, the sound of breaking glass. He lay still for 30 seconds. Then he got up because lying still was worse than doing anything, and went to the kitchen with his phone held out as a torch even though the screen was black. In the lightning flash, he saw the broken glass on the kitchen floor, a bottle that had been on the counter, now in pieces, and in the corner of the kitchen, watching him from the shadow beside the refrigerator, a small black cat. Kenji exhaled. The cat, the building cat, who came in sometimes through the window that Takeru always left slightly open in the kitchen despite the building rules. He stood in the dark kitchen and laughed at himself. Quietly, the way you laugh when you have been very frightened by something ordinary. He swept up the glass carefully, put the cat outside the kitchen door, went back to his room, and stopped. In the corner of the bedroom, beside the wardrobe, a man was standing, dripping. Water ran off his dark raincoat and pooled on the floor. His hands hung at his sides. He was completely still, and in the flash of lightning that illuminated him fully, Kenji saw his skin. It was the color of deep water, blue-gray, the particular shade of something that has been submerged for a long time. His eyes were open and very dark and fixed on Kenji with an expression that was not threatening and not malicious, just desperately, terribly sad. The man from outside the office building. Kenji stood in the doorway of his own bedroom and could not move. Then the man spoke. The same voice from earlier, distant, coming from further away than the distance between them should have allowed. "I only wanted to help," he said. "I only wanted to help. Why did it happen to me?" Lightning, thunder, the room bright for a moment and then dark again, and the man was moving toward him. His body was changing as he moved, expanding, bloating, the raincoat straining, his face distorting, as though something were filling him from inside, as though he were full of water that had nowhere to go. Water began to appear on the bedroom floor, rising, not flooding in from outside, materializing, appearing, surrounding Kenji's feet and then his ankles and then his shins with a cold that was absolute and total and wrong in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. Kenji tried to move. He couldn't. The water rose to his waist, his chest, his chin. He could not breathe. He could not call out. He could not. Takeru came home 2 days early. His trip had been cut short and he had sent a message that Kenji had not received. and when he opened the apartment door, he found Kenji on the bedroom floor with the windows closed and the air completely still and no water anywhere. He turned Kenji onto his side and Kenji coughed up water. Not a small amount, a significant amount. The kind of quantity that made Takeru call an ambulance immediately and pace the hallway waiting for it, unable to explain to himself what he was looking at. Kenji regained consciousness on the floor and then properly in the hospital. He told Takeru everything. Takeru listened without interrupting, which was his habit, and then sat quietly for a while. When Kenji was discharged from the hospital 2 days later, he went to the area near his office building and asked questions. The woman who ran the convenience store on the corner, the one that was open at all hours, that had been there for 20 years, remembered. "Old Hiroshi," she said. She said it quietly, the way people say the names of the recently dead. 3 years ago. A terrible night. One of the worst typhoons of that season, she told him the story. An elderly man, thin, always in a dark raincoat, known in the neighborhood for his habit of helping strangers with his large umbrella during rainstorms, had been standing outside a nearby building one night, waiting. A woman waiting for her ride had been standing beside him. When her car came and she got in, the hem of her coat caught in the door as it closed. The old man saw it. He had run after the car to tell her just that, just the small kindness of telling her before the car drove away, and had not seen the construction barrier, had not seen the unmarked excavation in the pavement, had not seen the pit that the work crew had left open and half filled with the night's accumulated rainfall. He fell in. By the time anyone realized what had happened, it was too late. The water was too deep. His lungs were full before help arrived. He had simply been trying to help someone. That was all. A small, ordinary kindness, and it had killed him. The woman behind the counter looked at Kenji for a moment. "People around here say they still see him," she said. "On rainy nights, standing outside with his umbrella. He doesn't seem to know." She paused. "I think he's still waiting to finish the errand. He never got to tell her about her coat." Kenji booked a flight back to Sapporo the following week. He told his employer a family situation had arisen. He worked remotely for 2 months before eventually finding a position in Hokkaido that suited him well enough. He never returned to Tokyo. He has never been able to explain, to anyone's satisfaction, what happened on the bedroom floor that night. The hospital found water in his lungs, not a dangerous amount, but a medically significant and entirely unexplained amount, given that he had been alone in a 4th-floor apartment with all the windows closed. The case was logged as an unusual respiratory incident of unknown cause. He still lives in Sapporo. He is careful about umbrellas now. He always has one, always checks the forecast, always keeps a spare at the office. He does not like to be caught in the rain without one. Not because he is afraid of getting wet. Because on rainy nights, when he has no umbrella and the rain is heavy and he is standing alone on a street corner looking for a cab that isn't coming, he is always aware of a particular possibility. That someone might appear beside him, quietly, with an umbrella, saying nothing, and that the something dripping from their clothes might not be rain.